He was able to identify what day it is today for anyone who could understand what tomorrow would be in the context of this conversation. He also told me that all the time slots were available for tomorrow. As you can see at the end of this quick demonstration, he actually made the appointment. And let's check the calendar to see how it turned out. And as you can see, here is the appointment made. In this video, I will show you step by step how to build a scheduling agent using an HTTP module. Stay until the end to follow the entire tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and stay updated on all the months. If you need to implement this solution or any other with our company, my agency's contact email is in the description below. Without further ado, let's go straight to the tutorial. If you don't know what the credentials are or have any questions about what I'm talking about, there's a specific video on the channel about how you can create your Google account and how to create your credentials so you can use Google Calendar. I recommend you watch that video. Okay, assuming you already have the credentials, let's go. First, this first node is like a chat, so you can test it internally within your flow before actually implementing any tool. So, the initial recommendation is to use the chat node, as it allows for a more focused and quicker test. The second node is an agent node. This agent node is quite simple to fill out, especially because in our example, there won't be any other tools. Ideally, it will just handle the scheduling, but I will demonstrate how this prompt looks inside. And this is the prompt. Feel free to take a screenshot, but just remember, I'm using a fictional company, and the time is relative to my reality. So, I recommend you pay attention to these details after taking the screenshot. Make sure to put the name of your company or your client's company, and be mindful of the time zone, the local time of your client. It's also important to mention that you should include the approximate time for each service available in your client's schedule. So basically, it's about the company name being present at all times. It repeats in this prompt, as well as the time zone, and especially the timing of each appointment. In this agent node, there's not much more to be done. It's quite simple to fill out for this example, as we will only deal with scheduling. Okay, the next node will be a notifier. I always recommend that you use the GBD4NN model, because, from my point of view, it's the model that performs best while consuming less. This is a recommendation for the current time we are in, for our present date. In the future, it may not change. Memory. Let's add the memory buffer. Just to clarify, there is a minimum memory published with the recent version that came with the new users. Now let's get to what matters. Tools. Regarding the tools, we will have two tools. However, one will be responsible for checking the calendar, and the other will be responsible for actually making the appointment. Let's start with this one. Well, the description of this tool is a prompt, and I will show it, and you can feel free to take a screenshot. Perfect. Here is the description of the tool. Remember that this tool will be responsible for checking the times, stating that the universe has a calendar. As long as you pay attention to exactly which time zone you are operating in, and that you also provide the operating hours of either your company or your client's company. So, in this tool here, we will basically say for it to check the availability time within the hours. It's very important to note that you should be aware of the initial operating hours of your client or your business and the time at which they end their service hours. Another important thing is to be attentive to the local time. This is very important. There could be some issues within your calendar if you don't provide the information correctly. Okay, it may seem redundant, but it's very important that in all fields you repeat the information so that there are no discrepancies in the scheduling. Okay, so basically, it is responsible for returning the free response and also for checking the available times within your initial operating hours and your closing time. It's important that you check the OTC to see if it aligns with your time zone and also repeat the approximate time for each consultation or scheduled mix. Okay, you patiently. It was a well said thing. It sounds silly here. It's important for you to understand the story behind what's written. The method will be post because we are going to post the information into the calendar. The URL, I'm going to show you where you can find this URL. If you don't know where to find the URL, I recommend again that you watch my video about creating the credentials from the cloud. And if you don't follow what was taught in that video, even if you find the URL, it probably won't work because it needs the credential to be validated within n8n. So if you haven't watched it, I recommend that you do so to execute everything in this video. You need to go to this site and pay attention in your own. When you can just sign up for the calendar, you'll be redirected to all the possible API references for Google Calendar. We need to locate the URL, so it's pretty simple. After Clicking on Page Enhancement, you have to go to FreeBus. And the hint is that this is the base URL you should use, followed by PST without noise and /n FreeBus. So, if you check the way it's written here, including the request model, it's exactly the same as we configured here. All the trends, as I mentioned, already have a video about this, but if you have any questions or are not able to do it accurately, feel free to go back and watch the video. Here you can just activate the body and set it as if you were going to type a JSON below. This JSON is quite simple. It will generate in a way that the rest of the flow can understand what will be referred to as n8n time maps. Remember that it will use the time you set as the time zone to place it in the most accurate way possible on your computer. So, you need to generate a learner as well, not just by choice, and the important thing is to understand what is being generated within this JSON and what will be sent to the next step. Alright, in the next step now, after we inform, if I'm not mistaken, the HTTP, to get the legacy of informing us, it should capture within our working hours the start time, end time, and capture all available times all together now. For the creation of the node that will actually make the scheduling, which is this node, and it's also something to have. Its prompt is at least very short. Let's get straight to the point. It's really simple. Just remember, the agent's own intelligence, combining all the prompts we've set both internally in the agent and in the previous node. The agent is already understanding one. It should first activate the checking tool and then the tool to actually make the appointment. Okay. So don't forget about that. You can also remove one method, which is good because it helps locate this URL. We want to create an event. So let's go back to the opening page. And now we go to events. Since we want to insert an event into the calendar, we will now use this method here to insert, that is, to create an event. And you'll need to configure this URL. It's very simple. Now that we are using a different category, you should come here and pay attention to the base URL. After that, you need to specify which email you want to use as the base calendar for scheduling all the events. I'll show you in practice. If you use the basic URL here, then you added the calendar followed by the email you want to use as the means of registering all these elements, and perfect. Having done that, I won't go into details again about configuring Google credentials. Now, let's move on to JSON. JSON here is quite similar to the previous one. Here's what we're going to do. We will collect the person's information, the start time, and the end time, and send it to the calendar where all the events will be stored. So, it's very important that you adapt this to your reality. It was a bit of a challenge from the previous name. We need to be a bit more specific and put placeholders for what we want to emphasize for better performance. For example, here in the username, we need to write more specifically. You can take out a lot of this, but the most important thing is that you understand the logic. I just didn't describe it as I gave an example of what a username would be, like the name Smith, for instance. For start time, you can see that I took it out. It's very important that you read it this way. You will describe that the start time is when the event begins based on the time zone, Florida. Then you can, at any moment, describe the time and the format. And this is the format accepted by Google Calendar. Here it is, for example, so you can note it for your reality and for your team as well. End time. The end time, if you check, is also here. The end time. You will repeat what we just did for the start time. You will describe it as an end time. You will basically say end time is the time when the event finishes. Then, repeat the time to give a clear overview and adapt it. You will also mention that the usual duration of each event is 1 hour. But I emphasize again that you should pay attention to the details that need to be adjusted for your reality or your client. And finally, repeat the time format. Your agent is set up and is already capable of communicating in a humanized way and can also find the available times for you to schedule an appointment. So let's test it. As you can see, it was able to understand what day today is, what time zone we are in, and make the calculation. And not only that, it identified what my name is and what my idea is. Remembering that in the initial example, when we had already made a reservation, It was able to acquire a short and basic memory. So, for many companies and many clients, it is important that the agent is not too simple and empty. With an agent like this, it can, in a simple way, remember the entire context, thus making this agent much more humanized, much more efficient. You can see that now there is an appointment set for tomorrow. Success. If you need to implement other solutions to improve operational efficiency in your company, contact our agency Lumia via the email in the description below to speak with one of our developers to find the best solution for your business. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content like this. Until next time.